Hi, I'm Clayton Marshall, and I'm a sophomore in business.
I'm Alexandra Mull, and I'm a junior in civil engineering.
I'm Zach Sisson. I'm a junior in civil engineering, and today we'll be talking about personal protective equipment.
In this presentation, we are going to cover the rules of OSHA and PPE, as well as examples of PPE and information that forms the basic education and requirements of PPE. OSHA, which stands for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is a government agency in the Department of Labor. OSHA is responsible for maintaining safe and healthful working conditions by setting and enforcing standards and by providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. This includes mandating the use of personal protective equipment when and wherever deemed applicable. OSHA addresses PPE usage and specific standards that it publishes. OSHA heavily facilitates safety standards to all employers and on jobs. All workers are entitled to a safe workplace under federal law. Without OSHA's safety regulations, there would be an increase in workplace accidents, an increase in sick leaves, workplace mortality, and large revenue decreases. OSHA defines PPE as equipment worn to minimize exposures to hazards that cause serious workplace injuries and illnesses. In the construction industry, PPE is primarily equipment that is used to reduce risks associated with building construction and heavy equipment. In 2017, there was more than 5,000 workers killed on the job, and over 20% of these deaths were in construction alone. PPE reduces what is known in the construction industry as the Fatal Four, which are falls, struck by objects, electrocutions, and caught in between. These are the four most common construction accidents that result in death or serious injury. Statistics show that just by eliminating these four accidents, we could save 582 workers' lives in America every year. PPE provides protection for the face, head, feet, legs, hands, arms, body, and hearing, as well as your respiratory systems.
The next few slides will cover the basic types of protective equipment that comprise PPE. First is eye and face protection. This primarily consists of face shields, masks, and goggles. Each type has different options and regulations depending on the type of work being performed. This can range from full face masks with tinted window lenses, which is mainly used for heavy welding tasks, to clear plastic goggles for basic sanding and drilling. All of these provide protection from exposure to flying particles, molten metals, liquids, gases, and vaporous chemicals, as well as potentially harmful light radiation. Head protection consists of hard hats and helmets. Proper head protection ensures that workers are protected in case of falling objects, bumping heads on fixed objects, or head contact with electrical hazards. Hard hats and helmets are designed to resist penetration of objects and absorb shocks and blows. They are water resistant and slow burning. With 3 different classifications of A through C, there are options for every possible risk posed to workers. Foot and leg protection consists of boots, leggings, and shin guards. The most common item used in this category is the protective boot with support in the toe and ankle area, typically made out of a non-conductive material. Manufacturers are required to meet impact performance standards as set by the American National Standard for Personal Protective Footwear, enacted in 1991. All such equipment must be able to protect from hazards such as heavy tools or objects, sharp objects such as nails or spikes, exposure to molten metal, hot, wet, or slippery surfaces, and electrical hazards. For hand and arm protection, the type and degree of work is very important in reference to the types of gloves and forearm splints called for. The types of materials that the gloves and splints are made out of, as well as how high up on the arm they reach, largely relies on this information. Materials are designed to fall into 4 different categories: leather, canvas, or mesh material, coated fabric material, chemical and liquid resistant material, and insulated rubber material. Body protection is used if workplace conditions could cause bodily harm. This could originate from extreme temperatures at the worksite, exposure to molten metals or other hot liquids, impact from tools, machinery, or materials, and also hazardous chemicals. Wearable safety accessories can also be attached to protect workers from falling from high elevations, such as in high-rise buildings. Examples of body protection include laboratory coats, coveralls, vests, jackets, aprons, surgical gowns, and full body suits. Determining hearing protection for employees can be challenging. Employee exposure to noise depends on a number of factors, including the loudness of the noise, measured in decibels, the duration of each employee's exposure, and whether the noise is generated from one or multiple sources. The type of equipment used also affects the noise generated. The main types of protection include single and multi-use earplugs or ear muffs. Respiratory protection is now one of OSHA's latest additions to mandatory PPE and is one of the only mandatory PPE that a job site must provide at no cost to the workers if a job falls under standard requirements. The purpose is to control occupational diseases caused by breathing air contaminated with harmful dust, fumes, gases, or vapors. Options include multi-use or single-use, as well as full or half facial coverage.
The obvious benefit of PPE is that it increases workplace safety and reduces the risks of accidents or deaths. It protects workers and prevents toxic chemicals from entering the body, and it saves companies money by reducing worker compensation for injuries. It also saves money ultimately by creating organized, efficient processes for completing job tasks. An con associated with PPE is that it is inconvenient, difficult, and time-consuming to put on the necessary equipment. The initial cost for such equipment can also add up to be expensive for companies. If regulations are not followed as required, hefty fines can be placed on companies for noncompliance. Furthermore, PPE itself does not completely protect workers from all risks. While OSHA does its best to encourage the safest working conditions and protocols possible for all workers, there are some challenges that interfere with this process. The main one, ironically, is worker compliance. Many workers claim that although this equipment is for their safety, it interferes with their work performance and mobility, and therefore choose not to wear it unless it is absolutely necessary or mandatory for the activity. On-site management is also responsible for this compliance challenge, for they want workers to perform at their highest production level and don't recognize risks to workers due to little or no education about PPE. The future of PPE rests entirely on the progression of technology. As seen in the diagram of hierarchy of controls, PPE is the lowest level. This means that PPE is a temporary fix to the problem of construction hazards and is not a solution. OSHA's future goal is to have zero PPE. This does not mean that PPE is removed from workers, but to remove the workers from the hazards of construction. For this to happen, technology must progress and ultimately have smarter designs for workers to be able to operate machinery either remotely or by programming. In conclusion, to review the main points of this presentation, OSHA regulations are mandatory on all construction sites. However, OSHA also provides help through on-site consultations, education classes, and even partnerships for safety equipment to be available on-site. These protocols and actions by OSHA have prevented many injuries and even deaths. These protocols protect the workers, but also allow construction sites to run more efficiently and at a low-cost rate with streamlined productivity. Sources for this project include multiple publishings from OSHA, the Government Center for Disease Control, also known as the CDC, and an article written by a construction consultant published in the Houston Chronicle newspaper.